Three, two, one.
Here we go!
Three, two, one.
Here we go!
Hey, welcome to week 3 in our series called King of Hearts, where we are working our way through Jesus' most significant teaching called the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus himself was inviting anyone listening into a whole new way of living. And he's giving us that same option now. And the question that we are asking is, who is a good person? And how do you know if you're really living a good life? Jesus used a very specific word to describe what was necessary to live this new way, and it's this word righteousness. It's actually this Greek word that John continues to put before us called dikaiosune. It's just this Greek word which means what is it that makes a person truly right or truly good. If you missed last week, John introduced us to this other word. It's the word raka, which is an expression of contempt. The word was formed from the sound it makes when you're actually clearing your throat to spit in somebody's face. It's treating someone as if they are worthless, less than human. It's this place we get to in our minds where we decide that you mean nothing to me, and I don't care if I hurt you. And listen, there's not a place in the world where that is more damaging and more dangerous than in a marriage. I'm frustrated in this marriage. I'm angry about unmet expectations. I'm mad about what you did to me. I'm mad that you work so much. I'm mad that you're never home. This isn't the life I signed up for. You hurt me, and so now I will hurt you. And so you build up enough contentment in your hearts and in your mind, and you get to a place where you don't care who you hurt. I'm lonely, I'm unhappy, he or she isn't giving me what I need, and so I'm free to get it somewhere else. And this was written over 2,000 years ago, before there was internet, before pornography was available 24/7 in the palm of your hand, before swiping right and sliding into DMs, and requests for pics was even thinkable. Jesus had a word of caution for us. It's found in Matthew chapter 5, verse 27, and it says, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.'" Now, this is not new information for these people listening, and it's probably not new information for you. This was one of the Big Ten, the commandments that God gave to Moses and then Moses gave to the people. This is Old Testament, strictly speaking, prohibiting a married person from having sex with someone other than his or her spouse. It's absolute. It's not right under absolutely any circumstance. There is zero gray area here. There's not a single scenario that excuses adultery for either party involved. It is always wrong, it is always destructive, and it will always leave a wake of pain and destruction behind it for everyone in its path. But that seems fairly obvious, doesn't it? I don't know that anyone could really hold up an argument against it. But then Jesus continues, because up until this point, everything was really just black and white. There's this old way of righteousness where you are fine unless you cross the line. Don't have sex with someone who is married. Don't have sex with someone other than your spouse. Don't cross the line. But what exactly is that line? What exactly are we talking about, and how far is too far? When we draw those lines in the sand like that, our human nature is to get right up then to that line. We push it as far as we can go without actually crossing the line. But the problem there is that it leaves zero room for error. If your line in the sand is simply sex with someone other than your spouse, and you push right up to that line, well, you're in big trouble, because you're one step away from a wrecking ball just completely sweeping through your life. So again, verse 27, he says, "You have heard it said that you shall not commit adultery." Okay, we got that. That's the old way. But then he takes it further and he says, "But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart." And this is not just a man issue. This is not just a male or a female issue. This goes for everybody. The Message version of that verse is my favorite. It says, "You know the next commandment pretty well too. Don't go to bed with another spouse. But don't think you preserved your virtue simply by staying out of bed. Your heart can be corrupted by lust even quicker than your body. Those oogling looks that you think nobody notices, they also corrupt. And so, what are we talking about here? Jesus is taking it one huge step further and saying this is more than just your actions. It's more than just your line in the sand. This is about the state of your heart, and it starts with where you put your eyes. A guy by the name of Dallas Willard writes in his book, The Divine Conspiracy, those who look upon a woman or a man for the purpose of lusting for her, using her visual presence as a means of savoring the fantasized act, has thereby committed adultery with her in his heart. In other words, all the elements of a genuine act of adultery, other than the overt movements of the body, are present in such a case. The heart elements are there. Usually the only thing lacking for the overt action is the occasion. When the heart is ready, the action will occur as the occasion offers. Just as the thief is the person who would steal if circumstances were right, so the adulterer is the one who would have wrongful sex if the circumstances were right. So when we say everyone who looks at a woman or a man with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart, this is the kind of looking that we're talking about. It's a look with an intent behind it. It's not a glance, it's a stare. It's not appreciation or complimentary. It's fantasy. It's imagining what might happen next. I like to say it this way. The first look is free. The second look is sin. You can't help what catches your eye, but you sure can control what keeps your eyes. And so then what in the world are we supposed to do? Married people, single people, this is a conversation for all of us because in order to be right sexually before God, we have to be people who have a detailed and established plan to not engage our bodies, our thoughts, our desires, our intentions, and most importantly, our eyes on things that minimize, arouse, or treat sex casually. Because it's anything but that. And maybe you don't know this, but sex was actually God's idea. He created it on purpose and for a purpose. He created it to be powerful, and so powerful that it needed boundaries. It's kind of like fire. Fire is incredibly helpful when it's contained. It heats, it cooks, it lights up a dark room, but a fire without boundary causes nothing but destruction and death in its wake. Sex requires emotional, spiritual, and physical boundaries. It's not casual, it's deeply intimate. Because when God created us, He made us with this desire for intimacy. And that intimacy was to be within the context of a covenant relationship with your spouse. Every single time you have a sexual relationship, you have given away a piece of yourself that you cannot ever get back. And that's by God's design. I found this really fascinating article in Vanity Fair this week when I was doing research on this subject. And the article was entitled, Tinder and the Dawn of the Dating Apocalypse. The author is interviewing people who are in a New York nightclub, and one response says, with these dating apps, he says, you're always sort of prowling. You could talk to 2 or 3 girls at a bar and pick the best one, or you can swipe a couple hundred people a day. The sample size is so much larger. It's setting up 2 or 3 Tinder dates a week, and chances are sleeping with all of them. And so you could rack up 100 girls you've slept with in a year. He goes on to say, a lack of intimate knowledge of a potential sex partner never presents an obstacle to physical intimacy. We may not know each other's names, but that doesn't mean we can't hop in bed with each other. One of the guys says, I sort of play that I could be a boyfriend kind of guy in order to win women over. But then they start wanting me to care more, and I just don't. In February, one study reported that there were nearly 100 million people using their phones as a sort of all-day, everyday, handheld singles club, where they might find a sex partner as easily as they'd find a cheap flight to Florida. It's like ordering food, says one guy, but you're ordering a person. And we wonder why we have a problem. Check out this passage from Job chapter 31, verse 12. It says, adultery is a fire that burns the house down. I wouldn't expect anything I count dear to survive it. Jesus went on to say in verse 29, if your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body go into hell. Obviously here I think Jesus is being a little bit sarcastic. I don't think he's being literal. Because if there were an actual body part to cut off in order to avoid sexual sin, I'm pretty sure that's not the one he would have picked. But I do think he's saying do whatever it takes. Cut off that relationship, delete your Tinder account, get some accountability on your phone, on the internet. Stop hanging out with those people. Stop going to those places. Do absolutely whatever it takes, because adultery starts with your eyes, and then it moves to your heart, and your actions will follow. And so the real question here is, what would you do if you knew you could get away with it? If you knew you wouldn't get caught? Because that's really what Jesus is going after. I want to introduce you to a word. It's the word behold. It means to fix your eyes. There are plenty of things in this world that you can fix your eyes on. It's really up to you. God gives us that ability, that choice. But here's the thing. What you behold is what you become. What you fix your eyes on is what roots itself in your heart. You fix your eyes on success, well, you'll probably gain it at the expense of your family. Fix your eyes on money, it will never be enough. Fix your eyes on fitting in, there will always be another crowd to try to chase down. Fix your eyes on pornography, you will absolutely have a lust problem. You are absolutely committing adultery in your heart, because if given the opportunity to act on it, you probably would. Fix your eyes on pornography, and you are absolutely treating the person on the other side of that screen like an object. You are choosing to forget that that is someone's daughter, that is someone's son, and more importantly, it's a person made in the image of God. And if you think it's harmless, you're dead wrong. Fix your eyes on sex, you will absolutely have a sexual integrity issue. If you're married, you will absolutely burn your house down, and the things you hold most dear probably won't survive it. Fix your eyes on anything that is not Jesus, and it will not fulfill. Jesus is calling us to a different kind of life. And no matter where you find yourself today, single, married, on the brink of disaster, the cheater, or the cheated, Jesus is calling us to fix our eyes on him. And so let me ask you this, what are you beholding? What have you fixed your eyes on? What do you typically allow to capture your eyes? Do whatever it takes today to fight for sexual integrity in your life. Jesus is inviting us into a better way of living. We just have to be willing to say yes. Because what kind of people would we be if Jesus were really the king of our hearts?